Okay, so from the hardware store, you're going to need a 8-foot long piece of poplar wood that is 1 inch by 2 inch stock. You're going to need about 2 feet of 7/16 diameter wood dowels, which is these guys here. You're going to need about 3 feet of 1 1/4 inch wood dowels, which is this one here. If you can't find a doweling that big, you could also use poplar square stock, which I've used for the back one here, since didn't have enough for a dowel for that back piece. You are going to need 2 M6 screws, 2 M6 wing nuts, which are these big long screws here, and the wing nuts to go with them. And you're going to need 4 hanger bolts that are 3 inches long by 1/4 inch in diameter. The hanger bolts are already installed on the dowels. That's this here. You're going to need wood glue, and you're going to also need, how are these screws down? You're going to need 2 screws for the support cross beam, which is
the M6 50 mil.
50
mil.
50 millimeter screws, 2 of those. And some 1/8 inch braided nylon rope. I cut 3 10-inch pieces right there. Okay, so for your cut list, you're going to need to cut the larger wood doweling, which is the 1 1/4 inch wood pieces. You need one that's 12 inches long and one that is 13 inches long. So you cut the wood, and then you can see here there are 3 evenly spaced holes drilled into the wood. 1, 2, and 3. You're going to drill it right through. So that's roughly about center, and then 1 inch or 2 in from each end on this piece of doweling. And then you're going to screw in the hanger bolts into the dowel. So one end of this is like a double-ended screw. One end of this screws into the dowel, and the other end is going to be inserted into the side piece. And so there is one on each end of this dowel. You're going to do the same thing for a dowel on the back. And the dowel on the back is 15 inches for the back frame dowel. And then you're going to cut a piece of the wood stock, 15 inches. And then you've got 2 pieces that are 6 inches. So you're going to start with taking the 15-inch back support piece, which is this long one, and you're going to glue and brad nail. Actually, before you glue and brad nail, you'll want to drill some holes in the side support pieces. One set of holes is going to support the dowels. The other set of holes is going to screw to the side frame. So on the 6-inch stock piece, you're going to drill about 3/4 inches up from the bottom, drill a hole centered, and then this one is about 2 or 3 inches from the top, wherever you're going to drill the second hole into the piece. Then the side pieces can be glued to the bottom 15-inch piece. It's going to be glued on top like that. So you're going to glue the 6-inch side pieces onto the bottom piece, and then it's brad nailed in to hold it in. Okay, so when we're starting to assemble the frame, you have the 15-inch piece on the bottom, you've got your side pieces glued in, they're already drilled for the holes on the side, and the dowel is now going to be inserted into the side as you're assembling it before you glue and screw everything together, if that makes sense. So this is the back supporting piece of the loom. This is your back piece of, I guess, your winding spool. All right, so one set of wing nuts is going to hold this on. And the wing nuts are there because once it's glued and assembled like this, you can't really take it apart. But one set of wing nuts is here to tighten it to prevent it from turning once you've got your wool threaded on. So I've got the wing bolts threaded onto the hanger nuts. And now we've got our back piece, which has got the round dowel, or the square bit if you couldn't find doweling. And that turns to be able to wind on your warp. And then this is the bottom piece, which is used to prop it up on the table or hook onto the edge of a table. This is the side of the frame. So the small little 3/4 inch wood pieces are glued onto the bottom to act as feet. Same thing with the others, you got to drill your holes first. So 3/4 inch from the front of the piece, there is a hole to be able to attach the front dowel. About 3 or 4 inches in, there's another hole which is going to be screwed to the support middle beam, and then the hole at the end is about 3/4 inches in from the end, and that's going to be attached to the back piece of the loom. So we've got 2 of those that are going to make up the sides. And then here's that shorter 12-inch dowel for the front for holding the finished part of the project. Okay, so same thing. The dowel is going to get inserted. I'm going to turn this sideways, make it easier for me. So that one's in. I'm going to put the wing nut on. Okay, and same for the other side. So now that I'm turning it around, that's now the front, and the back is closest to me here. All right, so now you can see I have got the front. The front dowel is now screwed to the 2 side pieces. So just the side pieces are attached so far. Now I have that support piece is just attached with a screw on the side. So now I have the middle support piece screwed in with screws. The holes were pre-drilled into the support piece in the middle. Got a screw holding it in, and this is the front where we've got feet on the bottom, and we've got a dowel in the middle, in the front, and the support in the middle. Okay, so now for the back. The back has already been made here with the support piece on the bottom, those side pieces, and then we've got a dowel or the moving square block up top. And now we're going to attach it, and it's designed for the side support pieces to go inside, and all those pre-drilled holes is where we're going to line up. The bolt with the wing nut. So I'll turn around from the back so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to turn around so you can see the back. I've got my bolt and my wing nut again. We've pre-drilled the holes in the side and pre-drilled the holes through the side frame. And putting on the wing nut. Okay, so now I have the main part of the loom finished. We've got the back piece with its support on the bottom, the moving dowel in the middle, side supports, center support, dowel here in the front, and the little feet on the bottom. All right. Okay. So I cut some of the nylon cord. I cut about 10 inches to start with, and then I'm just going to take a lighter to melt the edges so they don't fray. And now I've got those 3 holes pre-drilled in the front. I'm going to start by threading my string through each of the 3 holes. All right. Now I'm just going to try a slip knot. I'm going to tie a slip knot at the back. Actually, this is a basic knot, not a slip knot. Basic knot at the back. Loosen this a little bit so I can turn it more easily. string through. All right, so the smaller dowels are going to be used to tie your warp threads to it, and then it will then wind it on to the front. So this I'm going to do a slip knot on. So I have my 3 slip knots into each of those threads. I'm going to slide the dowel through. All right, so they're about evenly spaced. And I want this dowel to be pretty straight and pretty even, so I'll bring it forward and line it up with about where that center stick is, that center support beam. And then I'm going to pull my slip knots. And tighten those up. It's a bit longer than I need, so I'm going to cut it and then burn it with the my candle lighter. All right. Now we're going to do the same with the back. So I'm going to turn this around. The melted ends are a lot easier to go through the hole as well. I'm going to tie a knot. in each of the strings. And I'm going to do the slip knots again. So same thing, I need to thread this dowel through. Okay, so now the frame is assembled. We have the front frame where we're going to wind the warp. We will end up tying the threads down and winding them around from here, and then that is the back where we are actually going to wind the threads on. So we've got my pattern here. We need to tie the threads onto the apron rod in the order that they appear on the pattern. So that's what these little dowels here that are tied with strings are called. They're apron rods. They're just to tie the strings on so they can then be wound around onto the actual warp support. So this is the back of the loom. This is going to be the spinning support dowel for the warp, and this is the apron that we're going to tie everything to. I've got my pattern underneath, and I will be tying them on in the order that they appear. Okay, I've got my first few threads of my pattern pulled out. So I'm going to tie slip knots in them. And I'm going to start sliding them onto the dowel. So I'm going to take off the first two support strings of the dowel. Actually, I'm going to start by taking off all three. So I want to start threading the strings on my dowel. So I've got my first on. I'm going to pull the slip knot tight on. So for my particular pattern, my first 6 strings are going to be red. Slip knot. going to slide the dowel through one of the first apron strings. So now you can see that the goal is to have my strings slip knotted on to the dowel. I will get all 80 of my strings put on. As I get about halfway through the strings, I'll put the second support string on, and then the same thing, I'll leave about the last 6 to 10 strings to come after this one so that I have an even distribution of yarn threaded on to the dowel. Okay, so now all threads have been tied on to the dowel with slip knots, as you can see. And now the idea is to wind everything onto the main dowel. So we're going to start by making sure everything is straight as possible going on. It's important to start off straight. And we're going to be winding off the back toward us. So before we get a complete overlap, I'm going to put a tea towel underneath between the first row and the second row being wound. We've got everything all lined up. I'm going to start winding around, and then you can see the dowel is where all the strings are tied. The dowel where the strings are tied has been gone around once, and it's almost touching the yarn a second time. Now I'm going to insert a tea towel to be between each wound group of yarn. Tuck that up underneath. My daughter is holding the end to keep the tension pretty even, and we want to make sure the strings are single. Not bunching up. And this is what it looks like all wound on. And this is what it looks like from the front with our warp all wound on. Now we're just going to thread the heddle, and then I'll come back and show you how to wind it onto the other dowel. Okay. Now that I've got my heddle threaded, we're now going to tie on the ends onto the second dowel. Grab a group of about 8 or so yarn ends. 6 to 8 works really well. So I'm separating this into 4 and 4. I'm going to tie it over the dowel. Bring it up over the dowel. And in the 2 different groups, you're going to bring the tails out underneath. Tighten it up. and then tie like half a bow. And then do the second half of the knot. This sash is going to have a pretty long tail, so I'm going to leave those there. Grab the next batch. Bringing the tails up on each side. Checking my tension and tying it off.